Hi everyone, welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. My name is Stephen, and this is your opposition preview video for Everton's game at the King Power Stadium against Leicester City. I'm joined with Dan from Blue Tinted Glasses. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Hiya, mate. Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, obviously really good to always have a mixture of fan channels on. Have you been on the channel before? This is the first time we've
No,
spoke.
first time.
No?
First time.
Well, very big welcome to the Toffee Blues. We also did, before I forget at the end, we did a video on their channel, so make sure you go and check that out before we get into it. So, Leicester start of the season, we spoke about this on your channel. Two draws and 2 defeats. I'd bite your hand off for that now as an Evertonian. What have you made of it so far? Because coming back to the Premier League can be a bit of a... We've seen with Southampton, haven't we? Same as us. A little can be a baptism of fire, if you like, but Leicester have seemed to have handled it quite well.
Yeah, it's a weird one, mate. I think if you said to me before the season started, you'll have 2 points from 4 games with the fixtures that we had, I'd have probably snapped your hand off. But it's a little bit frustrating because I think at times we could have got more points. I think that the manager actually, which I'm sure we'll get into, but the manager's actually held us back in a couple of those games. The Spurs game, of course, I didn't expect anything from, but we played really well in the second half. We were peppered all of the first half. It was Monday Night Football, so I'm sure a few people watching this would have watched it. But yeah, we really struggled, and then there was kind of like a tactical change or a mentality change in the second half, and we looked much better, and we managed to get a goal from Jamie Vardy. So we were happy with that. We had Fulham, which we were poor in. We equalised to make it 1-1, but they scored a late goal. So I think that was probably a fair result. But the Villa game, which was a big surprise as well, because we expected to lose that one. Champions League Villa, of course. Yeah, I think we could have won that game, if I'm honest. We waited until we were 2-0 down before we made any attacking changes. But even prior to that, we were having really good moments in the game. We could have easily been 2-1 up, in my opinion. That ended 2-1 to Villa, but we should have probably scored 2 or 3 goals. So again, that was frustrated. And in the last game, Palace, we were 2-0 up, albeit for like a minute. Literally, we scored 20 seconds into the second half. They scored like a minute later to make it 2-1. And then Connor Cody gave away a penalty in the 90th minute to make it 2-2. So yeah, there's, of course, with Spurs, Fulham, Villa, and Palace, 2 points is probably quite a good return as a newly promoted team. But there are frustrations there from Leicester fans, including myself, that we haven't got a win yet, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that 2-2 against Palace, we'll talk a little bit more about that in depth because it was an old Everton man, actually, Connor Cody, who gave the penalty away at the very end. Still going to Selhurst Park and getting a 2-2 early on in the season is a good result. So the performance, go into that a little bit deeper for me and tell me, because you said that obviously as well, Steve Cooper started the season with Bobby Deckled over Reed, and then moved on to Steffi Mavadidi. So how was the performance in that? Did it give you a bit more hope going into that, or after the results like the Tottenham one and the Villa one, did it sort of take away from them a little bit?
A big talking point amongst the fan base has been the negativity in the lineups. They've been quite negative lineups, quite defensive lineups. The midfield situation has been a massive talking point because in pre-season, Steve Cooper played with no out-and-out number 10, basically. We lost Dewsbury Hall, who played in more of an attacking role last season. It was kind of a role we called the advanced eights under Enzo Maresca. They're kind of just eights that get really high up the pitch. It was Ndidi and Dewsbury Hall that played them roles last year. And this season, in pre-season, it was kind of Winks and Didi, Hamza Chowdhury. They were all featuring in midfield. And then in the Villa game, Cooper actually lined up with 3 defensive midfielders. No number 10. Despite us signing Facundo Buonanotte on loan from Brighton, who's looked really good so far this season, and also a Moroccan international, Bilal El Khanous, who's an exciting young talent in creative player. And he chose not to play either of them, and that got a lot of stick from Leicester fans. And then in the Palace game, he did the same thing. The difference, though, in the Palace game was that in the first half, I think it was the best half of football we've played so far this season. It was a largely counter-attacking football, for sure. We did try and hold the ball, try and control the game at times, but Palace, they were pressing us really well. It was quite difficult to do that. But in terms of the commitment from the players, the counter-attacking football, it was really, really good to watch. And then in the second half, the problem was that as soon as they scored that goal to make it 2-1, again, just a minute after our second, we kind of just seemed to go in our shell a little bit. The players kind of dropped back. I think the first substitution Cooper made was Wilfred Ndidi off for Hamza Chowdhury, which it sounds like a like for like change to maybe an Everton fan or any other fan in the Premier League. However, it's not. And the reason for that is because for the last year, Wilfred Ndidi has turned into Zidane. And I'm not joking, right? So I don't know what it is, mate, but it was Enzo Maresca that started it. Ndidi's been transformed into this attacking outlet, which is ridiculous because he's always been a 6 in my eyes and other fans' eyes. But he's now this creative player. So which is mental. It also helps with kind of winning the ball high at the pitch as well because he's a great ball winner. So yeah, taking him off for Hamza Chowdhury was quite a negative change. And then when he brought Connor Cody on for, I think it was Mavididi, or it might have been Jordan Ayew, the whole structure, the whole system changed, and it kind of we just basically said, "Come on, Palace, do your worst, come at us." And we barely got the ball. We when we did win the ball, we couldn't do anything with it. We had a 38-year-old Jamie Vardy who's on his last legs up top. 80 minutes into a game, and we had Abdul Fattawi out wide, but he couldn't do much with it. So that was the frustrating part. The first half, mate, 100% the best half of football this season so far. But the second half, we just seemed to go into this, I don't know, this type of football that we expected from Steve Cooper, which was just really negative, and it just set us back a little bit. So
sounds a bit like you're talking about Everton there, because I said the exact same thing about us, didn't I? In your video, that it was the same with us with the Villa game. Opening half an hour, 2-0 up, riding it really well, and then a stupid mistake, letting the cross into the box, and Michael Keane being out jumped by Ollie Watkins of all people, who he's probably about 6 inches taller than, to give away the goal, and all of a sudden the momentum shifts. Same against Bournemouth. They come out, they get 1 goal, and then they feel like they can get 3, and they did. And while we're talking about Everton, poor start of the season, 4 games, 4 losses, just gone out of the Carabao Cup as well on penalties. What have you made of that? Because we spoke about it on your channel. You asked me a bit about it, but I never got a chance to see what you thought. So, of course, it's been poor, but what's it from the outside looking in?
From the outside looking in, it's bad. I mean, I asked you, is it as bad as it looks on my channel? But I think the thing is, mate, before the season started, the teams we looked at to compete against relegation were Ipswich, Southampton, and Everton, if I'm honest. And although I expected you to be down there, I didn't expect it to be this bad this early on. Of course, that could all change. A manager change or anything could see you rise at the table. Of course, I'm not saying that you're going to be there at the end of the season, but from a Leicester point of view now, we're looking at Everton and Southampton as the 2 that we're fighting against, and then obviously Ipswich as well, probably. So, yeah, it looks bad. Obviously, you had quite a good defensive record last season. That seems to have gone out the window. And as you said, there seems to be parallels between how both teams approach a lead. And I think obviously the Southampton game last night, that makes it 3 in a row, right? That you were up, that you were leading in and lost. You were leading against that, yeah.
Yeah, we 1-0 up, but obviously went to penalties. We seem to go out of the Carabao Cup on penalties every season. I think it's like I can't remember how many it was, but I've lost count. We seem to go out on it every single year on penalties.
It's funny you say that. I think I remember now I was beating you actually in a Carabao Cup penalty shootout 4 years ago. I remember that, I think. So, yeah, that is an interesting stat. But yeah, I mean, if anything, it's kind of like Leicester want Everton to go 1-0 up on Saturday, mate, just so we can carry on the trend. But Yeah, I do feel for you. Again, like I said, of course, Everton were one of the teams that we looked at as right. We need. This is one of the teams we need to beat. This is one of the teams we're going to be fighting against for relegation. But yeah, like I said, I didn't expect it to be this bad. So it does add a different interesting dynamic to the game on Saturday. Both teams winless. Both teams wanting to get the first 3 points. So I think we're both going to be completely up for it. So yeah, it'll be a hard fought game for sure, mate.
Who's been Leicester's player of the season so far? Because you asked me a bit about it, but Leicester have come up and obviously lost Enzo Maresca. Steve Cooper's come in. There's been a lot of changes, hasn't there? So I want to know best player who for Leicester so far this season from what you've seen, and also how you think Leicester might line up on Saturday.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. Some people I speak to on X on Twitter like to think that I never like to be or admit that I'm wrong on something, but I am definitely admitting that I was wrong on Wilfred Ndidi because as I explained, Wilfred Ndidi was kind of in a more attacking role last season, and I said no way he can play that in the Premier League. There's no chance, but he's got the most assists. I think he's got the second most assists in the Premier League so far this season. I think he's got 3. He's looked really, really good. I would probably say he's been our player of the season, especially after the Palace game. Facundo Buonanotte, again, he's only started 2 games, the first 2, and he just looks like a magician. He looks so good. It's a shame because he won't be a Leicester player in the future. He's just signed a new deal at Brighton when he joined us on loan. It's just a 1-season loan, no obligation, no option to buy anything like that. So he's definitely the most creative player, I would say, at the football club, alongside maybe Mavididi and Fatawu. So I'd say Ndidi and Buonanotte have been the two standouts so far. Of course, Vardy's got 2 goals on the board, a goal against Spurs and a goal against Palace. So he's always one to watch. I think he will start on Saturday. I did have a feeling that he might not if he hadn't have scored. We signed Odsonne Edouard from Palace on loan. He couldn't play on Saturday, obviously against his parent club. I thought maybe he would come in, but now Vardy scored. I think Vardy will get that number 9 spot. And then in terms of the rest of the team, mate, how I expect us to line up, it'll be Hermanson in goal. It'll be a back 4 of James Justin, Okoli, Fass, and Victor Christiansen. And then most likely the same midfield trio, even though we're at home. It's quite negative, but a midfield trio of Harry Winks, Oliver Skipp, the double Tottenham pair in there, and Wilfred Ndidi. And then it will most likely be Jamie Vardy as the striker, Mavididi as the left winger, and probably Jordan Ayew as the right-sided winger, but it could be Abdul Fattah as well. Cooper likes to have a balance, it seems. If he's got kind of an exciting attacking winger on the left or the right, the other side will be a bit more of a presser, maybe a bit more of a defensive forward, if you like. So I think that's why he'll go with Jordan Ayew on the right if Mavididi's on the left.
Yeah, I mean, we've just signed one who's a bit of a more forward-thinking winger in Jesper Lindstrom, and so far he hasn't played. He opts for 2 defensive wingers, so yeah. I mean, one isn't bad when you could have none. You spoke there about a couple of players that Leicester have got danger men that Everton need to look out for. But for in your opinion, who on the Everton side do you think could be the difference maker? Because I mentioned the likes of McNeil and Ndai. You mentioned Decore, who the way you're describing it seems like a great player for Leicester. The way you're talking about it seems to be playing that because he sort of played that position for us in Sean Dyche's first sort of 18 months really well and was able to pop up with goals all the time. That's sort of just ahead of the centre midfielders able to get forward and get on the end of things more than creating chances. So in terms of Everton players this season, we've all been a bit low on confidence, but who do you like?
Well, like you say, Decore. I know you said that he's had a bit of criticism from fans. You said that over on my channel, but he's definitely one that I always keep an eye on. I think Calvert-Lewin with 2 goals, you said so far this season. He seems to just be, I don't know, I never know what to make of Calvert-Lewin. I mean, was it like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where he had that great season? He was in the FPL every single week, scoring goals. But he just seems, he struggles with injuries, right? Quite a lot as well, Calvert-Lewin. He seems to struggle with injuries.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so so they're the two I thought off the top of my head. But then, like you said, mate, I mean, McNeil is a solid Premier League player in my opinion, for sure. The new lad Lindstrom, like you mentioned, I did actually see him miss that chance last night. Actually, I saw that on the highlights this morning. But he looks like a bit of an exciting player. Like you said, he might not start, so obviously. But is he someone that you've been bringing on or not?
Well, he came on for a bit against Villa, and he's a little bit raw, a little bit sort of, does have the ability to make chances, but just hasn't been able to bed into the team properly because,
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if Sean Dyche I want him. But yeah, he's one that I want them to bring in a little bit more. But, I think it'll be going to have to take a change of manager before players like him are thrown in and we start going for it and trying to win games rather than being 2-0 up and losing them 3-2. I'd much rather lose them 4-2 than 3-2, if it means that we're at least going out and trying to get a third goal. So, with the likes of him, the likes of Beto, the likes of Ndai, there's definitely potential there, but it just seems to be a case of confidence and the way Sean Dyche is setting the team up.
I do like Ndai because I remember he left United, didn't he? Sheffield United in the lurch. Obviously, was it like the final day of the transfer window or something last year? It
I'm
was
not
something like
sure.
that, wasn't it? It was late on in the window.
I didn't know much about him when we signed him because obviously he played a lot of his football in the Championship for
Yeah.
Sheffield United and then went to Marseille. But then I was looking at what some Sheffield United fans were saying about him. They were saying that he's fantastic and we never wanted to lose him, and he's really like an anomaly for this recent Sheffield United side. That he's just been absolutely fantastic. And at first, I thought that was I was worried that Championship would be his level, but it's been the complete opposite. He seems to just be the one team that we can the one player we can rely on in this team to try and change the game a little bit. He's actually got a bit of quality on the ball, which is brilliant. Before we go on to our last couple of questions, score prediction for Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I'll stick with what I said over on my channel. I'm going to go for a 1-1. I keep getting told I'm so negative these days, but it's only from, I think it's Steve Cooper that's given me the negativity, to us, mate. So I'm going to say 1-1. Of course, we both need a win. We're both desperate for it, but I think that will just add to it. And yeah, I think if we can put in a good performance, you're going to be chomping at the bit, in my opinion. That's what I think you will be, and I think it'll just be hard fought game. So yeah, 1-1. Just don't lose it. Just don't lose it. That's all I'll say. Don't lose it. So yeah, 1-1.
And I made a prediction over on the Blue Tinted Glasses channel as well. So go and check that out. I won't say it here because my predictions are often quite negative on here, but you might be surprised with what I said. And then just to finish off, Dan, we always do some light-hearted questions because being an Evertonian, you can get quite downhearted, and it's a nice way to cleanse the palate after after a talk about Everton Football Club. So both Everton and Leicester, no strangers to a football documentary film, if you like. Obviously, you had the really amazing one about the 2015 season.
Yeah.
We had Howard's Way, which was a sort of a big, long documentary about Everton in the 80s and sort of the culture of Liverpool as well. But I like to ask people from different channels what your favourite film is. So you want to choose a football one, you can. If not, maybe a series, something like that.
My favorite movie. My favorite football movie is The Damned United. I think.
Oh,
Yeah. I think that's my favorite. My favorite football movie. Quality movie that is. My favorite movie of all time is Interstellar. I like sci-fi. The first time I ever watched, I wish I could watch Interstellar for the first time again. I love it that much. So yeah, that's my favorite movie, mate.
Brilliant. And obviously, that the Damned United. I think anything about Brian Clough, the one about
Yeah,
Brian Clough, isn't it? Anything about him
yeah.
is really interesting. I think he was just such a amazing character, wasn't he? He just had sort of a weird. I mean, football managers don't really have that anymore. Really, when you look back on 60s and 70s and 80s, the managers were a different breed back then. But yeah, they were completely.
Michael Sheen, it does it
Yeah,
brilliant. Plays him
yeah,
brilliantly.
he does do a fantastic job, and his accent's spot on as well in that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then also before we finish, Everton and Leicester have shared a few players in the past. Of course, you got Tom Cannon at the moment, who's is playing for the Foxes. Came through the academy at Everton. Any that really stand out to you as being your favourite players to have played for Everton and Leicester?
Well, Cannon's on loan now. Actually, at Stoke. We loaned him out, which is yeah, that upset a few people because we see him as quite a promising player. But Cooper didn't seem to rate him that much, so that's a shame. But hopefully he'll be back in the team in the future. Yeah, I don't know, mate. I mean, Lineker, he played for Everton, didn't he? The Gary Lineker.
Yeah, Lineker was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Mann got Walker's here, like the Vardy packet. Yeah, probably Lineker. Yeah, great player, obviously, for Leicester, for Everton, for England. Was it Barcelona as well? He went to.
Yeah.
Um,
You've got
other than that,
you got the likes of Adamola Luckman now as well, which is a bit of
oh
a rogue
yeah,
one to say.
oh
But
mate, what a player!
that blew my mind. That one when I see him now at Atalanta. I've got the Atalanta shirt on today as well. It
Nice.
really blew my mind seeing how the change in him, because for Everton he was decent. He did come through and have the odd good game. I remember in his debut, I think it was his debut, he scored against Man City at the Gladys Street end and we beat them 4-0. And he's one that I was disappointed it never really worked out for him at Everton, but you got the likes of James Vaughan he scored the winner in my very first football match that I ever
Oh,
saw. So
nice.
I've always going to have a good memory of him. Jermaine Beckford as well.
God, yeah, blimey,
Yeah,
yeah. Jermaine
still managed
Beckford,
to
yeah.
still managed to score goals in the Premier League and Championship. Of course, I think Evertonians were a bit worried when he joined that he wouldn't be able to step up because he'd had a big spell with Leeds, hadn't he? And then
Yes.
we signed him, but he still managed to come
He scored a
into
great goal for you against Chelsea or
Chelsea.
something, wasn't it?
Yeah, Chelsea
Yeah.
ran the whole length of the pitch. So he's one that Evertonians think of very fondly, funny enough. And same with Yakubu as well, who played for
Yakubu, mate. Oh, what?
Leicester.
Yeah. Yeah, cult hero, mate. He actually he wore this shirt actually, and he scored one of the best goals I've ever seen against. I think it was against Derby in the FA Cup. I'm sure it was the FA Cup, but yeah, he was wearing this one, and he kind of took it down on his chest. He knee on his knee as well, and then just volleyed it in from like 25, 30 yards out. So feed the yak, and he will score, mate.
Yeah,
That's it.
mate, he
That's
was an absolute. He was just knew where the net was, didn't he? He came on actually in our first game of the season against Brighton. He was doing something for a league of their own, where he came on and he had to do sort of like an American style penalty shootout against Micah Richards and Jamie Carragher, and
it.
and Yakubu got the biggest applause of the whole day from all four sides of the ground. So
I'm not
yeah,
surprised.
Marcus Bent
Yeah.
as well. There's a couple of big names in here that you might not remember. On the
Damari
women's
Gray.
side, Damari Gray, yeah. On the women's side, you got Kirsty Lavelle, who was a good player for Everton, recently left Leicester City. You got Gary Rowett as well. Of
Wow.
course, went on to manage, didn't he? And I think everyone was sort of thinking that he was going to really take that step up and be a quality manager, but I'm not quite sure what happened to Gary Rowett.
No, neither am I, mate. I was just thinking as well. Did you have Craig Shakespeare as an assistant at
Yeah,
one
we
point?
did. We had Craig Shakespeare, of course, the late Craig Shakespeare. It was really sad to hear about him passing away.
Yeah,
He was assistant under, I think it was Allardyce. I know it was 2017-18 season.
yeah.
And then, of course, he actually managed the team on a caretaker basis at one point during the season. Managed in the Europa League as well for Everton, actually, which was a crazy one because obviously he was the Leicester manager, and then I don't know. And it never really seemed to me like he'd end up at Everton, but a bit of a mismatched one because I always thought he was so well suited to Leicester City, but yeah,
Well, yeah,
the
he was at Leicester for years, by the way, years
Mhm.
and years, and obviously he was under Nigel Pearson, and then he was under Ranieri when we won the league. Ranieri got sacked. He was the caretaker. He won in the Champions League. He got us to a Champions League quarter final. Craig
Mhm.
Shakespeare did, and then the following year he was sacked, and then I think that's when he came to Everton. So yeah, a great man, great servant to Leicester and other football clubs as well. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So there's your little bit of Everton Leicester trivia for this one. And if you get into a pub quiz and someone asks you a pointless answer for players who played for Everton and Leicester, Eldin Jakupovic played 0 games for
Oh
Everton,
wow.
but he played 4 seasons at Leicester. So there you go.
I don't
But
know how
yeah,
many
thanks
games he
for coming.
played for Leicester. Not
I
many.
can tell you, he played 16 matches
Oh
in
wow.
4 seasons. But yeah, there's your pointless answer. Michael Keane as well. You can have him back as if you want.
I forgot about him. Yeah,
Yeah,
forgot.
you can have him
On
back.
loan.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Dan. Of course,
Yeah.
make sure you go and check out Blue Tinted Glasses. You can see what I predicted for the game over on their channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Toffee Blues. Get your comments in for your score predictions for this week. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate. Great fun. Hopefully,
Mhm.
hopefully we'll see each other again as well later in the year. Maybe we'll both have different managers by then. Who knows?
I'm sure we might have the opposite manager. Maybe Steve
Or
Cooper at Everton and Dyche.
swap. Yeah.
uh,
Well, mate, there's some Leicester fans that wanted Dyche, so yeah,
oh
it
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
surprise me.
All right. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.